It all started with a concerned call from a family member, wanting the family member to receive their help she needed at the time. They, being the police officer, officers, there was two, had agreed to take her to the mental health hospital. Little did anyone know the events that would take place, changing the way the city of Ohio operated. Hi, I'm Jessie Stories, aka Jessie. If you made it this far, thanks so much for being here. If you're new here, I cover true crime disability content, something not many people are doing. This is the most vulnerable community and least talked about. I want to start and continue the conversation of human rights as it attains to those with disabilities. What inspired me to do this was I am currently in a true crime case. You can see the docuseries on Netflix called Escaping Twin Flames. I myself am a disabled person. Proudly a disabled person. Disability is not a bad word. Disability is not something to be ashamed of. Society made you that way. Made you think, hey, disgusting, gross. And historically, if you watch all my true crime, I do history stuff too of true crimes because sadly, disability is full of true crimes, as in the disabled person getting tortured and killed due to just being disabled. So you can check out the 1939 Germany one. I'll leave a link up there. Please check out all the rest of the content I'll leave in the description down below of what I've covered so far of true crime. I'm still new at this, so I am still writing scripts. I will eventually be able to memorize it. I know I will. I am autistic with ADHD as an adult and with PTSD and just generalized anxiety. I've gone pretty much my entire life without medication for my ADHD, and I've chosen not to do it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with those who are ADHD on medication. You do you. I do me. Anyways, to continue to better understand this channel, I will handle every aspect of the disability community in true crime. Thanks so much for being here. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment because that helps boost the content that is already disliked passionately in the first place by the algorithm because of the content I cover. So please leave a comment, even if it's just a hello, I'll say hi back. To like, subscribe, leave a comment, share with a friend, whatever content that I've covered so far that you like. It doesn't have to be this one. And yeah, I will continue. If you haven't already, make sure to show some love to the true crime disabilities with little views. So anything that's 10 or above, or even 20 or above views, give some love, share with a friend, get those views up in the thousands if you can. Help get the subscriber count up to thousands. It will be very much appreciated to just talking about this subject. Even if it's uncomfortable for some, you don't have to agree with me. You never ever have to agree with my opinion. I want to hear your opinions and how you feel about each situation, or how you feel it could have been changed, or how we can implement laws that protect. Because right now, yes, the laws we do have in place only protect to an extent. It's already been proven with the current administration that it can be teared down pretty quickly. How can we change that? Where can we change that? Take a look at each one of these cases with me and let's figure that out together. And comment below your ideas. I'd love to hear them. I'm also forming some ideas too, and will be implementing them on top of something else I'm implementing with coercive control. It's why in each one of these cases, I'm going to try to implement, and even we will be having one, I can finally announce that, we will be having one very special professional guest, Dr. C. She'll be breaking down a case that I choose for her, which I already have. When we'll film and do all that stuff, I have no idea. But it will be happening, which I'm excited about. So we will have a professional on here breaking down the case. I'll see if I can grab some more too. I've asked one other, but I'll ask a couple more too. All right. Anyway, and this is my microphone. That will probably show up every so often. It's small, but it's clear. Hopefully I do a good job keeping it near my mouth. I'm not good at that. Anyway, and as always, please do your research and form your own opinion. Your opinion matters. It does. Okay, now back to Tanisha-Anderson. That's who I was talking about in the beginning, was Tanisha-Anderson. It was a cold day in November when two police officers came to Tanisha's door. She was dealing with one of the three categories of disability. Not three. There's multiple categories of disability, so ignore when I said three. Multiple categories of disabilities. It was schizophrenia and bipolar, both mental disorders. Now, disability has many categories: physical, sensory, developmental, also known as learning, mental health, also known as emotional, and other health concerns. There's so many categories. That's why there's a DSM-V, which I still need to get the updated one to get myself up on that, since my psychology class was the last time I read that thing. Tanisha would be fully under the mental health criteria of disability. So let's first go over what schizophrenia is. It's a disconnect from reality, and symptoms can be hallucinations, delusions, and disorganized speech. And let's go into an example of disorganized speech, such as repeating words. And just because someone repeats words doesn't mean they're schizophrenic. These are just examples and do not apply to everyone. Using words that do not make sense or put in a strange order, going from one topic to another with no apparent connection between the topics. 76% of people with schizophrenia do not take their medication. I personally believe it's due to the stigma of being schizophrenia. In the first place, Hollywood likes to over-dramatize the idea of schizophrenia without showing the human struggle behind the mental illness. Hollywood also likes to take creative liberties in people's mental illness, in my personal opinion. Like, you can check, there's like a Leonardo DiCaprio one where he's schizophrenic, which just isn't fully realistic to the experience if you hear from people that are actually schizophrenic. So I highly recommend listening to their stories and nothing Hollywood puts out on it, unless they're taking it from someone who is schizophrenic themselves. That's the most important part of people with disabilities. It's better to hear from the person themselves than a book, unless they wrote the book, a show or movie, unless they wrote that show or movie, or the director of that documentary or film or movie or series. I feel the same way about the LGBTQIA plus community too. All that I'm a part of. It's better to hear from them and their experiences. Other people's experiences teach you more than words on paper, again, unless it's from the person themselves. But that's just my own personal opinion. All right. She was also, so tanisha-anderson was, welcome to my ADHD. I will go off, kind of on topic, but deeper into topic randomly. I leave room in my scripts for me to do that. She was also bipolar, which can fall under the neurodivergent category. That's something new that I learned, that bipolar is actually under the neurodivergent. So she technically was a neurodivergent by just being bipolar. So her brain was already wired differently on top of the schizophrenia, which is also wired closer to like a PTSD person. So it's kind of interesting. Neurodivergent category. Let's go over what bipolar disorder is going through. Lows and highs of emotional, such as low, known as depression, feeling really sad, contemplating life, hard to do just daily life, can be heavy, can be hard just to exist. And then there is the high, which can lead to some dangerous activity. This is just from my personal experience with a friend that I decided to write in here, such as suicide, at least in a friend of mine's case, when she was in the manic phase, known as high phase, she did kill herself. So and maybe the day this happened to tanisha-anderson, maybe she was in that. I don't know. Her family knows. And which is great that they are keeping certain things private, which is every right of theirs. And they have every right to not like the police, considering what they did to her, without empathy, which I feel strongly we need empathy for everyone of every kind. It doesn't matter if we disagree. I personally love it when people disagree with me, because that leaves room for me to grow. And as long as it's not coming from a hateful place, I will take it. If it's coming from a hateful place, I'm not taking it. All right. Anyways, even those in the manic phase can just be really active and doing things and seem really happy. Tanisha also had heart disease. I want to hear more of what her family had to say about the situation, so let's watch a video. Let's hear what her mother had to say. Cue the video.
You did it, then you should pay for it.
Should they be convicted and sent to prison?
Yes, they should, just like you and I would be.
An internal police investigation found both officers failed to call for an ambulance in a timely manner. More than 30 minutes went by. Plus, the medical examiner initially ruled Tanisha died while being handcuffed on the sidewalk. Now we've learned a new autopsy review by the Attorney General's office is holding up the criminal investigation. Tanisha's mother tells me that's delaying justice.
You do something, you pay for it. That's the law, isn't it? For everybody, you, me, everybody. It's the law. What makes them so different? I ask myself that all the time. What makes them so different?
The Attorney General's office says it did not get the case to review until last November, a full 2 years after Tanisha died. Meanwhile, both officers remain on the force, on restricted duty, but collecting a salary. They're not allowed to have contact with the public. The city settled a federal lawsuit in the case for $2.5 million.
And then in an article that I read, and something I watched earlier too, her brother says she got the wrong help looking back. It's true the police officer should have been gentle with her. She was not of harm to society. And in my personal opinion, this was based off of race and not helping her at all. She had her civil rights violated. She was allowed to resist the cops. If she so chose to. It seems like she did. If it was someone who looked like me doing that, I wouldn't be met with physical violence. It's not right. Her life was taken away due to the public not being very well educated in the world of mental health and disabilities and racism, in my personal opinion, as I've pointed out so far. That's why it's so important for this channel's message to spread. Let's continue to focus on Tanisha by the accounts of her family, because they were the only ones. So it was November 13th, 2014, when Anderson's family called ambulance seeking assistance. Tanisha was having a hard day. That day could have been anything. The call came from a place of caring and hoping to get her the help she needed that day. Little did they know what she would endure. The police officer, Chris Harris, said, sudden death associated with physical restraint in prone position. And Mike Anderson's, Tanisha's uncle, she was going through a mental health crisis and eventually handcuffed to the ground. The empathy was coming from the ground up instead of the cops to the ground. She had no clue that was her last prayer. Yeah, think of the fear she must have been going through. I can only imagine being handcuffed. So first, knock at the door, open the door, whatever the cops said versus she said, I don't know. Then cops getting hostile with her, grabbing her probably. This is just my imagination of thinking what may have happened. Doesn't necessarily mean it happened. Grabbing her, taking her, and then maybe she tries to pull away, grab, push down to the floor. And I'm going based off of family accounts too, at least, not floor. I guess in this case, it would have been the snow on the road. Down, handcuff, and apparently they push down and then dead. And that would have been a lot of fear. I would have been scared for my life. I probably would have resisted too in that case and still been scared resisting wise. I can't even imagine the horror she was going through, which isn't right. It's why my thumbnail title is She Died for Being Black, because she did, and for being disabled. And we actually will get to hear next up before Tanisha deserved better treatment and deserved justice, which I feel personally wasn't served here. But I do love that in one of the news stations, they did interview an advocate, and I would like you guys to hear from the disability advocate himself of how he feels about the situation. Video number 2, cue.
Tanisha-Anderson was a person. Tanisha-Anderson fits in the group that I was born in and that I live in.
James Lamb is among many who question how a call for mental health assistance ended with the death of 37-year-old Tanisha Anderson. A medical examiner's report ruled she died after being physically restrained by police. Now he wants answers.
I said to myself, and I told the Board of Aging at our last board meeting, I said, listen, the only thing I can see is that we speak up.
And among the questions, what can be done to ensure those with mental disabilities are treated fairly?
We need dialogue for this. And if there's something wrong, let's find out a reason or a way, not a reason, but a way to bring about some solution.
No good reason why the investigation into Anderson's death has now taken more than a year and remains unresolved. Live in the newsroom.
I agree with everything he said. She wasn't treated with dignity or respect. She wasn't a harm to anyone but herself in that situation. I don't know what the full situation was, but most of the time when there is a crisis of any kind for someone, it's within what they are battling and not necessarily seen by others. I hope we never forget what happened to Tanisha Anderson by police officers that were supposed to be helping, not hurting her. As always, well, before we go into that, I know Ohio just got a law in place. I think it was in 2016 or 2017. No, it was like 2018. A law in place of the Tanisha-Anderson law, so that hopefully the police are accountable for what they do. I didn't read fully into that because I wanted to just focus on her. I'm really happy that Ohio decided to put something into place that hopefully protects everyone, every single person, from a police officer pretty much murdering them and not taking accountability for it, because that's pretty important. They're supposed to be protecting, not hurting. And anyways, I hope we never forget what happened to Tanisha-Anderson by police officers that were supposed to be helping, not hurting her. And always, as always, thanks so much for being here. From silent voices to shining lights, stories that inspire awareness and change. Till next week. Peace. Bye, guys.